Hi, Terry Allen with For the Birds. Bird identification is pretty much a two-dimensional kind of art and skill. I mean, we look at pictures of birds in the flat dimension, horizontal, vertical, but I want to introduce you to a person that takes bird identification to a whole new level in a second. But think about it. We see birds in two dimensions all the time. Bird identification, we see their field marks in field books and things like that. We see it in artwork like this all over the place. We have hand-painted feathers on, hand-painted birds on feathers, on tiles. And yet, there's another way of looking at and identifying birds, and that is the way Dan Holman does it in many dimensions. Look at this art and look at the detail that he has. Now, he has not only looked at the bird from one position, he's looked at it from the back, the bottom, so that you can identify the neck and the beak and the eyes. Not only that, he has to know it proportionately, because he's got to know how thick the neck is, if it's going to look realistic, how big the body is, how wide it is, the shape of the tail, the feathers, the texture. It's just an amazing way of identifying birds. And we're going to meet a guy named Dan Holman who does this as a hobby, but it just takes bird identification to a whole new level. So I want you to meet Dan in a few minutes.
You asked me how I got started. So when I was a kid, I used to go duck hunting with my dad, and loved it as a boy, and thought the ducks were beautiful. And but then I realized that people were making decoys, and that started the art form of itself. The great decoy carvers did that, and then it's moved into a more ornamental phase of it. So I met a guy in Illinois. He did, his name was Dick Lemaster. He worked for Caterpillar, and his job was to make models of their machinery and to put it in the lobbies of their factories. And somebody asked him one time, do you think you could carve a duck? And he said, yeah, I'm sure I could. So I went over to see him one time. He was putting on a demonstration. And I just got inspired. I wanted to do that too. And then I realized that there was a lot of data, but Dick Lemaster is the one that provided much of that data. You can find the shape of a bird, the feather patterns, the different feather groupings. You know what a bird looks like. And that got me started. My dad bought me a pocket knife soon thereafter, and I started whittling away. But I've grown from that. I guess I started carving about 1975, and been doing it ever since. Decide what bird you're going to do, and you have a regular block of wood. You do an outline of the bird on the side of it and on the top of it, and then you can begin to cut it out with a bandsaw, so you get the width and the depth, and it's going to need to be rounded off, and we can round that off on the bandsaw by twisting it and turning it, but you still got a lot of wood to move. But eventually you'll get to a place like this where you've got it rounded off, and you can see I've drawn in the feather groups for the bird, and then I began to carve those and put in detail. And I'll use a Fordham flexible shaft tool like this, which will allow me to get in and carve the detail. And I try to undercut each of the feathers so that they begin to look like they're overlapping. And then when you've got that feather detail in, the final step to make it look like a bird is wood burning. And I'll begin to burn in each of the barbs So you can see the barbs eventually are parallel to the shaft. Most people, when they look at it, have them come out at a 90-degree angle, but this is things that you can learn from the research other people have done by putting in all the detail that they've done through their research. So you can see there's that. Then you put in the shaft, or you could put it in first, and then you can see that the barbs eventually almost parallel that shaft. Block of wood, and you draw the profile on the side. Then you also draw the top of it. And then what I did, this doesn't illustrate real well, but with the bandsaw, you cut to here and to here, and leave a little bit. And then you turn it over, and you cut this, and then you begin to round it off and paint it. It all comes out of a single block of wood. The painting is as important as the carving, perhaps more so. I use acrylics only, so you can water them down, but the mistake some people make is to put the paint on too thick. But I've learned over the years that the best way to do it is with a wash. A little wash here, then put another one on top of it, maybe 4, 5, 6 different thin washes till it builds up. And that gives it detail and character. You got to have good pictures. Luckily, with the advent of the internet, there's all kinds of pictures anymore. You can find just about anything and different. You can see the top of the tail, you can see the bottom of the tail. There's pictures of everything, and it's been an amazing resource for people. But I do my own color blending. Some of the magazines will tell you what colors they use. But when I was a kid, I worked at Sherwin-Williams, and that was back before we had computers that would tell you how to mix colors. And I sort of learned how to do that. Put a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, and mix it in with the paint and try to match the color that a customer brought in. So I kind of learned how to mix colors by doing that. And that's paid off for this.